Sotah Daf begins with a discussion. If a man has a choice where he needs to marry one of two women, one is a woman who is under a lot of suspicion that she behaves inappropriately. A lot of people talk about her, and she has a reputation for inappropriate behavior. That's one choice. The other choice is the daughter of a woman like that. So which one is preferable? So obviously neither of them is a situation you want to be in, but which one is better than the other? So Shmuel says it's better to marry the woman herself who has a disreputable reputation and not the daughter, because the daughter may not be a kshera. It could be that she comes from someone who the father is forbidden, that makes her forbidden. Maybe she's a bas akama, who knows what. And therefore he's preferable to go with the woman who's definitely born from a kosher. She just behaves inappropriately. That's Shmuel's opinion. Rav Yechanan says the opposite. Rav Yechanan says it's preferable to go with the daughter, because the daughter, at least she herself, is b'cheskas kashrus. She didn't do anything wrong, as opposed to the woman herself who is under suspicion, who is not b'cheskas kashrus. She behaves inappropriately, and she's going to lead him astray. In fact, once she has a znos relationship with someone else, she becomes usher to him, and then if he ends up being with her, he will be living be'isr. So Maras Akasha, we have a brisa that says that a person should marry the woman herself. So it's pretty clear that it's a proof to Shmuel. So Rava says it's not a kasha, because the Mishnah doesn't make sense the way it's written. It says he should marry such a woman. How could you say that someone should marry such a woman? Obviously, it means to say that you have to interpret it as if he has to marry one of them, or if he has to marry her, then it's okay, but not to say that he should marry. So once you have to make an edit, so you can't prove anything, because maybe edit it the other way. Maybe you don't mean the woman herself, maybe you mean the daughter is what it should really say. So the Gemara says that the halacha is he should marry the daughter. He should not marry the woman herself, and the reason is because you have a brisa where Rav Tachlifa Bar Rava said, he quoted a brisa to Rabbi Avo, that a woman who is mizaneh, who behaves inappropriately, her children are assumed to be ksherim. And it's because we have a chazaka rov bilasachar bal. The majority of the bia that she has is still from the husband, and therefore you could assume that the children are ksherim. You don't have to worry about that, and therefore it's better to go with the child than to go with the woman who is herself problematic. Now, the Gemara has a shayla. Rav Amram asks, a woman who is prutza b'yoser, she's extremely promiscuous. What is the halacha? Do you still have a chazaka that her children are from her husband? Do you say still the majority is from her husband? Do you not, or are you no longer confident that the majority is from her husband? So the Gemara explains that the shayla is that the husband may watch her carefully during the times of her cycle, which is likely to get pregnant, to make sure that he doesn't have a child who's not his. So there's a machlokes which part of the cycle a woman gets pregnant. According to the opinion that it's close to when she gets her period, so the husband doesn't know when it is, so he can't watch her. So therefore there's no questions for sure, there's no possibility that he's watching her then, and you cannot trust, and there shouldn't be any cheskas, kashas, any assumption that it's from him. However, according to the opinion that she gets pregnant right after she comes from the mikvah, so the husband knows when that is. So here's the question. Do you say that the husband watches her during that time, and therefore you could assume that she's kosher? Or do you say, if she's really such a promiscuous person, there's nothing he can do about it, and therefore there's no chazaka anyway? So the Gemara says, Teiku leaves it unresolved. The Gemara concludes the perek with two additional brisas. The first brisa discusses the concept of the Beis Din doing a kinui. The brisa says it's a machlokes tanaim whether Beis Din can do a kinui or not. First opinion is the Chachamim that says you learn out of the pasuk ish ish to include every type of man could have a kinui on his wife, even if he is a cheresh, a shaita, or a eshes shimum, someone who's not functional, or someone whose husband, if the husband is away in Medinas Yam or is locked in prison, there could still be kinui, and that is that the Beis Din could do the kinui. Now, this kinui, what's its function? So the Tanakama says its function is to passel her from ksuba. You can't actually get to drinking the Sotah water because you can't, because the one who is going to make her drink the Sotah water has to be her husband, has to be the one who is doing the kinui. The drinking of the Sotah water has to be done by the husband, and the same person has to do the kinui, according to the Chachamim. However, you could have this kinui from the Beis Din that will at least take away her ksuba. Now Rav Yossi disagrees, and Rav Yossi says, no, you could even use this kinui of the Beis Din to make her drink the Sotah water. He does not have the drasha of that it has to be the same individual who does the kinui and the bringing her to the basin to drink the water. Now, what's the drasha that they're arguing over? So it says vikino vehevi. The question is that are those two linked? It has to be the same individual. Next brisa discusses a hekesh between a man and a woman in the Sotah situation. So it says asher tiste isha tachas isha. Asher tiste isha tachas isha. The whole pasuk is extra. So what's it here for? It's to link the man to the woman to the man. We learn a halacha from the man to the woman and a halacha from the woman to the man. What are these halachas? So Rav Sheshes says you learn from the man that he can't be blind because it says v'nela me'ine isha. He has to be able to see. So if the woman's blind, also there's no Sotah parsha because you learn that out of the man. Now, what about the other way? What do you learn from the woman to the man? So Rav Ashi says that she can't be lame or be missing her hands. She has to have those two because it says v'hemed, she has to stand, and it says that he v'hemed hakana seish l'fnei Hashem, and it says v'nasan al kapeh, he places it on her hands. She has to have hands, and therefore, if we learn from her to him, if he's missing his hands or his feet, also there's no parsha of Sotah that applies to them. Now, Rashi says another pshat. He says just like she has to be able to speak because she has to say amen, amen, he also has to be able to speak. Otherwise, there's no parsha of Sotah said by them. Now begin the 5th perek, which begins with a very lengthy Mishnah, which takes up the rest of the daf. The Mishnah begins with halachas of Sotah and then goes to a number of halachas that were said on the day that Rav Elazar ben Azariah became the Nasi. He repealed a gzeira of Rabbi Gamliel limiting who could come into the Beis Medrash, and many more people came in, and many more halachas were determined and decided on that day. So the Mishnah will include many of those. So the Mishnah begins by saying, just like the Sotah water affects the woman, it also affects the person who she was with. If she will die, then he will die as well. And that's because it says uva'u twice that the water will come in. The Gemara will discuss if the drush is from the repeated word or from the extra vav. Now, just like the Sotah becomes usher to her husband, she also becomes usher to the person she was bought with, and that's because it says nitma v'nitma, according to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yeshua says that is the drush of Zechariah ben Akatzav, and Rabbi says because it says nitma twice. The Gemara will discuss exactly how this works. Is it because of an extra vav or because of repetition of the word nitma? Now the Gemara goes on to discuss the other halachas that were said on the day that they allowed the extra Talmidei Chachamim into the Beis Medrash when Rav Elazar ben Azariah became the Nasi. The first one is a drasha that Rabbi Akiva makes about a sheni of tumah making a shlishi of tumah. As we know, the source of tumah is called the avat tumah. Anything that itzma tam is a rishon. And anything that becomes that is a sheni, and anything that becomes stemmed from that is called a shlishi. The question is, can a sheni make a shlishi, or is it too far removed from the source to actually have tumah created? So Rabbi Akiva has a drasha that you can. It says, "V'kol kli cheres asher yipar mehem el teichai, kol asher b'soichai yitma." Any earthenware kli that tumah falls into it, so it becomes tameh by having tumah inside it. So the kli itself here